Hey, good morning. Today is Sunday, June 16th, 2024. This is Wes Fryer, and this is a video draft of Chapter 2 of a media and book project that I am calling Online Sharing Tips. And I have a playlist of these videos that I am building, and this is part of a new workflow that I have started to use and I'm experimenting with for this project, in which I basically plan out my presentations, old school, digital, and share my ideas for this book chapter as a presentation, and then I convert the transcript, which is AI generated for the video, uh, into a book chapter, and then use a custom GPT that I've made with OpenAI's ChatGPT to refine that, and basically using it as using AI kind of like an editor and a co-writer. So, what would I like to talk about this morning? And I'm actually experimenting here today using StreamYard and live streaming these videos. Yesterday, I did chapter 1, which turned out to be about 43 minutes long, and I just recorded it directly on my iPhone. And I wanted to put my web address in here, which I now have on a piece of paper behind me, wesfryer.com. Excuse me. And so anyway, I edited it in iMovie and I exported it. Well, that 43-minute long video was almost 5 gigabytes in size, and it took like 2 hours to upload from my phone. And so I think that the video quality of what I am recording is not as well. It says it's high definition. Okay. Yeah, but it's not going to be quite as high quality as the previous one, but I think it's going to be fine. And again, my purpose here, I want to share and amplify these ideas. So however you might be accessing this information, fantastic. You could be watching this, you could be reading this, you could be listening to this, to a different, version of this. I just don't know. And I want to amplify these ideas. And I also am very interested in being able to supercharge my workflow as an author and as a speaker and presenter and somebody that wants to share ideas. So, as you can see from my shirt I have on today, I'm here for the learning revolution. I think I've had this shirt since 2007. When I think I got that together for my wife, I think, made this shirt for me for Father's Day or birthday or something like that. Let's talk about an after page, shall we? What I would like to do is go ahead and see if I can share my screen, and I'm going to present. Oh, wow, look at that. StreamYard is just really kind of amazing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And yes, I know this would be easier with 2 monitors. I'm just going to do my entire screen. Haha, isn't that exciting? Let's take a look at this. All right, what am I talking about with an after page? I'll tell the story. In November of 2017, I had an opportunity to visit Cairo, Egypt, and I was a presenter at a conference called the Edu Forum, and I was trying to find the name of the presenter who was really the lead keynote speaker. I think he was the only person actually at this conference who was speaking who was paid, because we had this like get together of all the speakers during the conference to discuss this, of some of the speakers. Anyway, met some wonderful, great people. But the fellow there in the very center, with sort of the balding forehead and the red shirt, was the keynote speaker. And I will find out his name. I will put a link to him to give him credit in the description of this video. And then in the edited version of this book chapter, I'll actually correct this with his name. But here's what he did at the end of his keynote presentation. And each one of us had a chance to share a keynote as well as some workshop breakout sessions at this conference. He had an after page. And so this is my after page. I don't know if this Zoom will show for everybody or not. You can see that it's just my web address, which is wesfryer.com, except you put the word after. And the idea of an after page is that we have different ways for people to connect with us. And so an after page lists those pages. As you can see right here at the top, and I have this on a WordPress website, and I updated this recently with some social icons that WordPress supports natively without having to have extra plugins or fancy things. You can connect me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. That's my primary personal channel. I have a cooking channel too that I have linked later. My YouTube channel, Mastodon, which is now my favorite microblogging platform, Threads, which is Meta or Facebook's platform for microblogging, like Twitter. And then I also do post on TikTok, but that's only cooking barbecue stuff. And then I have a link to Flickr. And then I guess this is that's probably my main blog, speedofcreativity.org. Now, as I created this a few months ago, or updated it, WordPress was not natively supporting social icons for Blue Sky or K-12 leaders. And I've really sort of discontinued my very active participation on the K-12 Leaders Network. I gave it a shot, but Blue Sky, I definitely still do. And Blue Sky, as you may be aware, was actually started by Twitter when Jack Dorsey was still the CEO, as a more standards-based form of Twitter, and it was an experiment, and so it was spun off, and I think that it's still owned and operated by what is now called X, formerly known as Twitter, but it is it's independent. So anyway, there's a lot of these places, and then I have these big links to the Substack newsletter that I maintain very erratically at this point, but it's Media Literacy with Wes. I have a handouts page, a wiki page, that you can access all of the handouts for the workshops and presentations that I've done. And then I started this last year a webinar series of live webinars, which are all about 30 minutes long. So those are 3 really key things that I want to share with people. As you scroll down, I've got links to the 3 TEDx talks that I've shared up to this point. And then I love cooking and I love barbecue. And I have a few channels that are specific to that topic, and then also some playlists. So this YouTube link here is a playlist that you can go to that just has all of my cooking videos. I have a page on Facebook called Cook with Wes, an Instagram page. And then, like I said, my TikTok is just dedicated to that. And then the website, the WordPress website, is a food blog that has all the recipes that my mother maintained on a website or a app called Paprika, which I really like a lot on my iPhone mainly. And then my Paprika recipes, all the recipes of my my wife's mother, Clara. And anyway, it's where I share stuff for our family. We have 3 kids, and how are you going to, am I going to make a custom cookbook for everybody? I need to actually do that at some point when I graduated college, which is when I had to start cooking on my own, because I went to a place where we had a cafeteria and food cooked for us all throughout college. My mom gave me a custom cookbook. So anyway, that's one of those things that I'm passionate about, and it's separate. I also create podcasts periodically, and so they're here. You can access the EdTech Situation Room, which is the almost weekly podcast I do with my friend Jason Neiffer, who's up in Missoula, Montana. I will periodically do a show with my wife, Shelly. It's called Wes and Shelly Share. The oldest podcast that I started creating in 2005, and I don't update as often now, but it's still available, is called Moving at the Speed of Creativity. And then I have some other channels here that I have listed that you can link to. I've got a variety of what I would call passion projects. So I started Heal Our Culture. Story Chasers was a nonprofit At the time that we lived in Oklahoma, it got shut down as a nonprofit and is now just a passion project that I maintain. And then since 2019, I've been working on a media literacy inquiry project called Conspiracies and Culture Wars. So there's a link to that, as well as my website called showwithmedia.com, which I started in 2013 when I published my second book, which was named rather poorly Mapping Media to the Common Core Volume 1. And that is a book project among several that I need to update. But I've been maintaining that website since 2013 for 10 years. And these are all different kinds of media projects that you can create with your students. In addition, I've got other kinds of links, the podcasts that I subscribe to, other websites, mainly on Google Sites, but some WordPress that I maintain about media literacy, Wonderlinks, which I just absolutely love using in class, all the media literacy lessons that I teach, a Playing with Media video library that I've maintained off and on for a number of years, the Funnel Cake website that my wife and I have for the side business that we're doing on funnel cakes, and a post about why I'm no longer on Twitter. And then I've got a playlist of videos by me, and then I've got some specific ones. So here's one about protecting yourself online. Oh, it looks like I have a stray numbered list here I need to update. And just, more links about other kinds of projects and things like that, Christian writing projects I've done. That is my after page, okay? It is fairly extensive. Let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. It may be overwhelming. It probably is. As a educator, as a multimedia communicator, as someone who loves communication, writing, presentations, oral presentations, the creation and sharing of video, like I love multimedia. And so I share a lot of different places. And I recognize that I am, at this point, an outlier in being an oversharer, but I think there is a lot of value in playing with media. This is something that I enjoy doing just for fun, but then this also impacts my professional skills as an educator, because as I play with different media and become familiar with different platforms, including platforms for social media, I am able to learn how I might use those in the classroom with students, use those to connect to other professional educators, enhance my own professional development as I seek to continue learning new content, new strategies, new tools, and then also just maintaining relationships with friends and having an opportunity to be able to connect with others and their ideas. And so the after page, I think, is an outstanding strategy. Now, specifically this Wednesday at the conference that Lucy Gray is organizing, I am presenting a session called Amplifying Your Brand on a Fractured Web. So let me talk just briefly about branding and why maintaining a separate page is so vital. So in the title of this presentation, Fractured Web, I'm using this metaphor of something being broken into a lot of pieces, being fractured. And I think there are some outstanding metaphors for the information environment that we live in today. I am fond of saying today that our media landscape is fractured and polluted. And so it's polluted in that there is misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, lots and lots of information that cannot necessarily be trusted, may be false, may have elements of both false and inaccurate information as well as accurate and true information. It's messy. It's really messy. And it always has been, because we've always had propaganda and we've always had people crafting different kinds of messages for different media platforms for different purposes. But today, there is more media from a quantity standpoint being produced than ever before. As I record this in June of 2024, artificial intelligence has burst on the scene. And not really, we've had these artificial intelligence algorithms, machine learning algorithms for a while, but large language models have come into the mainstream consciousness of many, many more people in the last year, specifically with the release of ChatGPT 3 and 3.5, I think, by OpenAI. And then we've got a host of other kinds of AI tools that are available. So that is a helpful metaphor to think about. We live in a polluted information landscape, but we also live in a landscape that is fractured and it's broken into different pieces. And I'll talk about some of these different platforms and why you might want to consider using different ones. I used to primarily give people, when you'd say, here, this is something that happens at the end of many podcasts. Hey, Wes, how can people, get in touch with you? How can you connect with me? I used to give my Twitter handle. I loved using Twitter. Twitter started in 2006. I got onto Twitter actually the same year I went to ISTE, and I think that was in Atlanta that my wife had got me this shirt, and anyway, that's 2007. That's when I joined Twitter, and educators began joining Twitter eventually kind of en masse, and Twitter became, for me and for many others, a wonderful, wonderful tool, not only for educational networking between teachers, but also networking with all other kinds of people, journalists, authors. It was amazing to be able to send a short message, and not in every case, but in some cases, when I'm reading a book and I want to give a shout out or say thank you, or sometimes even ask a question of an author. This definitely would happen with journalists, because many journalists were on Twitter and some are still on, unfortunately, because I think we should all leave Twitter. It's a dumpster fire, and there's a bunch of reasons why. It's just, I have decided, immoral for me, unethical for me to continue participating in a platform which is so intentionally harmful and repugnant. But before, Twitter was sold to this fellow named Elon Musk, and when Jack Dorsey was still the CEO, there were problems with Twitter, of course. It was messy, but I was able to find a really, really wonderful community, not only through Twitter, but through a multitude of other social media tools. Guess what? I'm not using Twitter anymore. So for me personally, I can no longer share, my Twitter handle, W. Fryer. No, if you go there, you will still be able to see the thousands of tweets that I shared over the years. And in my profile, you will find a link to, I think, let me look. You'll find a link. My last post is Meet Me on Mastodon. And, oh, well, interesting. I have a link to my Linktree. I didn't realize that. Maybe I should just link that. I should probably edit that. I guess I could show you what I'm looking at right now. For those of you that happen to be viewing this, and here, let's try just doing a tab this time. Okay. So this is my Twitter account. My last post was on November 20th, 2023. Actually, I think I did retweet something my daughter shared a couple weeks ago. But basically, I'm not using Twitter. Look, I have a direct message. I haven't checked that. All right, so here is my profile. And I'm going to talk more in this series about the value of curating your projected identity on social media, in the space that different social media channels give us to tell about ourselves. It's really important. And so I have posted to Linktree. I'll be talking more about this. Linktree is really cool. I'm using the free version. And so these are just different things that I have shared on social media, including Instagram, that doesn't let you tap a link. And so you can, for instance, go to this podcast I recently listened to on 404 Media, Why the Solar Storm Broke Tractors and GPS. It was from May 15th, 2024. Like, there's just a ton of different things, and sharing those links is really helpful. However, I don't think that Linktree is probably as positive and good for people wanting to connect with me as my About page. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my profile here, and I'm going to put in my website as my after page, not my Linktree. And so if somebody happens to come across any of my former past tweets, so here's my post from November 30th. Meet me on Mastodon. I actually did this as a blog post, and I did this as a video on YouTube, experimenting with this. I created this image with AI. So you can check out someone, right, when you find them on social media, and we should consider who the source is. That's an essential part of the SIFT web literacy framework that I teach my middle school students and I teach adults, and I really think is important. We stop, investigate the source, we find trusted coverage, and we trace to the original in some cases. So checking out the source, investigating the source, you can read, see the pictures here, and then here's the link, and people can click on my after page. That's really the number one page that I hope people will go to when they are, oh my gosh, who is this guy? I think I'd like to learn more about him. And as educational entrepreneurs, as people, and this is the audience that I'm going to be sharing with on Wednesday, as teachers, as educators, as people who have a message that we want to share and communicate with others, it is super important to have ways of connecting with people beyond simply the presentation, the video, the podcast, the book, the article, whatever type of media that we have shared that amplifies some ideas, but then also sort of lets us raise our hand and say, hey, I'm Wes Fryer. I am passionate about media literacy. I'm passionate about education and educational technology. I share about these things, and I'd love to connect with you further. That is the role of the About page. So originally, even here and on StreamYard, you can see my little subtitle. I say, Wes Fryer / wesfryer.com. Here's wesfryer.com. My website, wesfryer.com, is my primary website, and it's just shorter. This is something to attend to. I'm going to go ahead and share my whole screen again. Here's my main page. You don't want your hyperlink to be too long. And so, I have, this is somewhat similar to the About page. I've got similar, kinds of content here, but I've updated this. Like the last conference I went to in March, I went ahead and shared all of my presentation slides and resources. This was called NC Ties, and it's the North Carolina Educational Technology Conference. And I actually shared 5 sessions there, and I made a little shortened link and put everything on this one page. So it's updated. We want people to connect with us. So it's great to have an About page. Now, I should probably also address a little of the background of how I created this page and how you might create a page like this for an affordable cost. Full disclosure, I have a lot of websites and have maintained somewhere around 20 to 30 different websites for 15 years. I think I registered maybe my first domain in 2005. So that's 18 years ago. And that website, which is still online, and I haven't changed this domain, is my blog, speedofcreativity.org. Now, this website, as well as wesfryer.com and a lot of other websites, run a software program called WordPress. WordPress is open source. It is free to anyone to be able to use. However, you have to pay for a couple things in order to get a website like wesfryer.com to serve information. Okay. And the first thing that you need is to have a web host. This means a commercial company, because at some point there were people, and you can run a server out of your house, but it's not nearly as reliable and as good an idea. You want, a server, a computer that is in a, 24/7 climate controlled, backed up, power supply backup, all of this stuff for redundancy and for reliability. You want it to be available 24/7. And what that means is that we end up paying somebody else to host our website. Now, let me show you kind of the least expensive way to go about this. I would recommend using Google Sites, okay? And I'll give you an example it's not an educational example, but it's a personal example. This is the website for friersfunnelcakes.com. And so this is this, side business that my wife and I started in the fall of 2023, just going to festivals and area events and, making funnel cakes and selling funnel cakes. This is a website that is hosted for me for free by Google. And so when I go to Google Sites, which is sites.google.com, this is on my personal Google account. This isn't on a school account. This is all personal. I have created this website. And so here's Friars Funnel Cakes. And I have, images that I've made with canva.com. I've got text. I've got links. You can link to the Facebook page we have, the Instagram page. This is a landing page. And so we can provide, when we find, when we're at an event or whatever, so that's WordPress, we can give people this address, friersfunnelcakes.com. People can go there. Now, there's two pieces to having your own website. You have to have a web host, which in this case for me is Google, free. Okay, it makes it super important for me, right, to not lose access to my Google credentials. If my Google account, my password and my account would be compromised, it would be hacked. Oh my gosh, what do the hackers have access to? Everything that Google connects to, including this website. And that's a very, very important topic of password security in internet safety. And I've done presentations about that. And I'll just summarize it by saying each one of us, number one, needs to be using a password manager. You need to be using long and complex passwords that are unique for every different web service that you use. My recommendation, and I've heard many security professionals recommend this, is don't have some kind of a little formula that you remember to say, I put my birthday with the first three words of the website with, my favorite color or whatever. No. Create long, and I'm talking like I use 30 character random passwords. And I use a different one on every single website. The only way that you can possibly do that and remain sane is to use a software program called a password manager. And you can just Google, software password manager recommendations and put a source like CNET or the Wirecutter, or I don't know, the Wirecutter does more product demos or product reviews. But rather than me just tell you, here, use this one, it's a moving target. But I think that is a service that's worth paying for, and it's vital. And so in addition to using those secure passwords, you need to enable what's called multi-factor authentication. And that means that in order to log in to your account on a new device, you are going to have to prove your identity with something in addition to your password. So you have to have your username and your password, but you need another factor of authentication. Sometimes it's called two-factor authentication, but there's multi-factor because you can have multiple ways. And that could be a text message to your phone, but even more secure is you can use a key. And I don't have mine with me, but it's an actual, USB key that you can plug in to prove your identity. I digress a little bit, but that's important stuff because, when you have a website, you don't want it to be hacked and compromised, and you definitely don't want to be a victim of identity theft and, you know, have someone put content on your website, share on social media. That can be damaging to your personal reputation. That can have financial implications. There's all kinds of stuff that we need to be careful about and take proactive steps to be secure. Am I still sharing my screen? I think I might be. Yeah, I am. Okay, so the other place that you need to go to have your own landing page, in addition to a web host, and I've used different web hosts through the years, to run a WordPress website, which is more complicated and geeky. And for someone who is new to web design and maintaining websites, I'm going to recommend something like Google Sites that's completely free. You can use Squarespace, and if you're, you know, making an online shopping store and doing other things and want to use Shopify, there's, you know, other options that you can go with. But for a landing page, for a personal, professional page, Google Sites is fantastic, but you have to register the domain. I registered years and years ago, wesfryer.com, and I pay a fee to something called a registrar in order to keep that domain. Let me show you. I guess I'll share my screen again. I'll show you what I mean by a registrar. Okay, one way to learn about this kind of stuff is I'm going to put in the word domain registrar Wikipedia. Okay, because especially when it comes to technology terms, Wikipedia has reasonably good, sometimes very thorough and fantastic, you know, definitions and information. And the Wikipedia of today in 2024, as it's over 20 years old, is not the same Wikipedia of the early days. And so we could, like other sources, we're not going to just trust everything that's on this web page without any external verification, but Wikipedia is a very useful resource. And so a domain name registrar, this is defined by Wikipedia's page today, is a company that manages the reservation of internet domain names. A domain name registrar must be accredited, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's history. Now, at the bottom of most pages, there's going to also be see also, and I don't know, maybe they don't have a list. List of domain registrars. Okay, well, there you go. This is from ICANN. ICANN is the accrediting organization that you have to be accredited through in order to be a domain registrar. And so this list is going to have a whole bunch of them. And like I said, I have rotated among different ones. Now, I'm sorry to say that Google was doing this, and it would have been my recommendation to use Google because it was affordable and reliable, and it was real easy because if you're hosting your website on Google Sites, you could use Google domains. Google domains sold and transferred, I think it was last year in 2023, and so it's weird this website isn't coming up. And so I think it sold to Squarespace and transferred. Okay, so here we go. ICANN, One World, One Internet, list of accredited registrars. So there are so many of these. I'm sure there's, you know, I know there's hundreds, maybe there's thousands. There's a whole lot. You can put in the name of them. Oh, look, here's look at all these. Okay. Man, Dropcatch, and there's all these different, there's so many. Who do you go with? You know, who do you use? I have used for years I think they did change their name. Yeah. iThemes was a company, a WordPress company based out of Oklahoma City, actually in Edmond, and they have become Solid WP, but I was able to, you know, meet and work with some of those folks who were super into WordPress. And I eventually ended up using some of the hosting services that they would recommend. And again, rather than like recommend a single vendor, you know, this is something that's good to ask other people. Who do you use? You know, who is your web host? and also who is your registrar. One of the web hosts that I have used for years is GoDaddy. It's important to recognize that you pay different prices for websites. And let's say I wanted to do wesfryer.ai. I don't, but let's say I do. That's going to be with GoDaddy normally $60 per year that I'm going to have to pay every year for that domain. And it's a more valuable domain because that's this .ai website. That .ai is what we call a TLD, a top level domain, and that one just happens to be more expensive. They're going to offer a deal, and so if I get the .org and .net and .info, that's going to be $22.11. Let's see what wesfryer.com says. Now it says it's taken. They would negotiate to get it if I paid. I own it, right? So I don't have to do this. But if somebody else wanted to, they could pay GoDaddy $70 to negotiate, to contact the owner. But they offer a great alternative, wesfryer.org. And then there's all these other options. So somebody could register wesfryer.net for a penny for the first year. But if you have a 3-year term, then it's going to be $25 after that. wesfryer.us would be $5 for the first year, then $20 a year after that. And there's all these different permutations. So jetfryer.com is $15,000. You've got to decide, what is your web domain going to be? And then if you purchase a domain, you need to commit to continuing to pay for that domain. One of the sad things that happens when someone passes away, when someone dies, and they have had a website online, and they don't make provisions in their will, in their trust, with their relatives, business partners, friends, colleagues, somebody to keep paying for that domain, it goes away. And one of the people that this happened to is a good friend of mine named Bob Sprinkle. And Bob died in December of 2015. And I had worked with him a little bit later in life when he was ill and facing a bunch of different difficulties, and ended up being able to archive a number of his websites. And so I maintain this website, bobtaughtme.com. And you can, and I need to go in there and do some further cleanup because a lot of these websites are old, there's broken links, etc. But this is still online for Bob. But his original website that he owned, that he had his Room 208, podcasts on, he had Seedlings, which is this wonderful podcast that he did with Alice Barr and Cheryl Oakes up there in Maine, and a lot of content. That website, that domain expired and somebody else bought it. And I don't remember exactly what it has on it. I think it's in Mandarin Chinese, but it's just not good. And that content has our content is at risk online of being lost and going away, depending upon where we share it. So here's the key takeaway, and then I'm going to wrap this video up because I've got to go get dressed for church because we're supposed to leave soon. In order to have a landing page, it's really a good idea. People can go to your website, wesfryer.com, wesfryer.com/after, and you can provide links to your social media channels. And I'll be talking about some of those different channels that I recommend using in this series. But in order to have that, you've got to get those two things. You've got to have a web host, and you've got to have a domain registrar. And really, at the cheapest, from what I've seen, you can, and this was what Google Domains was at one time, for like $10 a year, you can have your custom domain. And you point that domain with your registrar. You get whatever address is the forwarding address or the hosting address of your website. You get that and put it into the domain registrar, okay, like GoDaddy or whatever domain registrar you're using. And then you are able to update your website with your host In the example, I use Google Sites, and you can keep your website updated. So, wow, look at that. 40 minutes. This is a lot longer than I'll be talking about this topic, obviously, in Wednesday's presentation. But I hope this information is helpful to you. Again, you can eventually access this series of videos and this entire media and book project by going to books.wesfryer.com. And as I share this, I'll also put links both on the YouTube version and in the Facebook version to a playlist where I'm building these, where I'm collecting these videos as I build them and create these book chapters. So I hope this is helpful to you. Create your after page. And if you do create an after page, reach out to me. Ooh, how do you contact Wes? If you go to wesfryer.com/after, there's some links to contact me. Actually, a message on Facebook is a pretty good way these days to contact me. I don't like to just put my email address out there, but I do have a contact page on my website, and you can click that, and I will eventually see that message. I don't look at that every day, but I do see those messages that come in on a Google form. Go make a contact page, an after page, and use that as a way to share your social media brand, your social media channels, let people connect with you, follow you, and continue to learn with you. Have a great day.